first of all, thank you for kind of making me part of this, considering that this is a panel on gender and these are all women. So I would actually would want one or two men there because so far we have started identifying gender is equal to women, and hopefully we'll have more diversities and more inclusions in the times to come. I have a little presentation because to borrow from BP Sanjay sir, I have a little power, but I have a little point. So I would like to show a kind of a small presentation. Just give me a second. Mm. So, as I said, my concern was that when we talk about gender, we talk about women largely most of the times. And considering that we're talking about a panel on equity, access, and participation in digital ecosystem, I thought that we can briefly talk about how do we define people. And if I ask you who the person is in the center, typically since the hair is long, you would say it's a woman, but there is a quote, so you will say it seems to be a doctor. So we all have our ways of kind of defining people based on various variables of age, education, sexuality, occupation, designation, biological sex, as we all recognize gender as a sociological construct. So we need to kind of start recognizing the fact that the gender is not only biology and sociology, but it's also an intersectionality. And we are all kind of part of certain kind of privileges, considering that we are all here and we are able to talk about these issues in this particular forum where I am thousands of kilometers away from all of you and I'm not able to be there physically, but still I'm kind of talking to you. And the reality is that the gaps are immense. We all are watching a match, but with certain privileges. And there's a segment of people who don't have those privileges. But when we talk about equality, we provide equal positioning to everybody. That also doesn't help because people are kind of positioned differently due to their intersectionality, and therefore it leads to certain kind of privileges that they get by sheer being in a position that they are in. When we talk about equity, which is what this panel is talking about, and all the speakers before me have already kind of pointed out very clearly how women are not being presented properly, and there is a kind of inherent disadvantage that women have. We are kind of trying to head towards a kind of a liberation where there are no barriers, and all the genders, irrespective of their caste, class, religion, sexuality, education, are able to be liberated about having been part of a digital ecosystem that we are already part of. That's why we are here. Now, looking at a kind of a digital ecosystem, I kind of went back and looked at Digital India 8 pillars that Government of India talks about, and interestingly, you will recognize that we don't see women there, not even in terms of a mention. And when we kind of go back and look at all 8 of them, largely we are kind of talking about infrastructure as a kind of a prerogative. And as already been pointed out by Padma ma'am, there is an inherent disadvantage that we have globally as well as locally in terms of the proportion of women connected digitally in terms of the infrastructure. So the way I look at women in digital ecosystem, the first and the foremost in my understanding is the dimension of education that we talk about. I'm not talking about in terms of literacy, but I'm talking about women in STEM, because women in science, technology, and I am a part of the first women's university in this country. And my academic council 2 days back had a long discussion about maths is not being preferred by women, and women are not able to clear maths. Now, this is kind of pretty interesting because, as we all know, if you say that a fish doesn't know how to climb a tree, the fish will kind of for her entire life believe that she's incompetent, is the kind of a context that we are running here. Then we talk about opportunities, and then we talk about empowerment. So largely, I'm talking about these 3 broad kind of pillars in the context of women in digital ecosystem. There is a kind of a framework that I borrow from Ranjana Kumari called social construction of gender. And a speaker before me was talking about how women are shown in media, and what kind of roles and qualities is expected, and how the housework has to be kind of managed. And then there is this whole dimension of sharing of labor, division of labor that we talk about in the women's studies and feminism. So we have all these institutions: family, education, religion, caste, state, media, and market, which defines how women need to be. And obviously they control and decide what women will do, how they should be, how they should behave, and how much of a value that it is of. And I'm sure all of you recognize the value of what we call unpaid care work during COVID, because women landed up doing all that. And there are tremendous amount of controls when it comes to the kind of fertility, labor, mobility, property, and resources. And obviously sexuality is for sure a kind of heterosexual normativeness that we all are part of. So there is this gender that is kind of socially constructed. When we come to digital space, it is not different from the physical space, because it is going to be the same, as we all kind of recognize. Now, coming to education, what I found very interesting is that it's only in last 10 years that we have started talking about women engineers. And if you kind of realize, especially in digital systems, we had women just way back in 1945. So it's kind of pretty recent that women have been kind of permitted to, or being allowed to be part of a kind of a system of education in terms of engineering. And I came across this very interesting book that has come out in 2018 called Roots and Wings. And the person herself is a kind of engineer, and she's from Indian origin. She's been kind of locating narratives of women, Indian women engineers, and you realize what kind of, and obviously a lot of you would have read Sudha Murthy and a lot of others who have talked about their own struggles of kind of being educated into technical education. So when we want women in technical digital ecosystems, the first step, in my opinion, is the education. And without education, it's kind of going to be difficult. As we all understand, half of this humanity is women. But when it comes to numbers, in terms of women in IITs, as we very clearly see and know, that the percentages are about 10%. So there is a kind of a much less number of women, and then our numbers are kind of going up, as we all know, and that is leading to another kind of a social incoherence, intolerance, and all sorts of other things. So when we want more women to be into the non-digital and digital spaces, we also need to be kind of making the other part of the society ready for that kind of a transition. The other issue that comes after education is to get women into the workforce, because obviously if women is becoming engineer, she wants a kind of job, and the job would have certain kind of demands. And as you very clearly see, that it's only about one-fourth of the women who are in kind of engineering roles. And obviously a lot of women are doing environment engineering, and there is a very interesting space called Society of Women Engineers. So they talk about one-third of women into computer and information research science are women. Like my university runs a very successful digital engineering program, and there are a lot of women there, and they are doing that. But a lot of them are not in India. They all kind of move out of the country. So that's the kind of another reality that we kind of have to start recognizing. And coming to gender, as you very clearly see, the data of one-fourth of the women in tech sectors, the Asian women are only about 5%. So there is again that kind of a discrimination, which is based on the race and class and color, because women are not getting equal opportunity when it comes to work. There's another set of data, as I said, from Society of Women Engineers about women in STEM occupations, and you'll realize that in computers, the proportions are going down instead of going up. So that's kind of another concern theoretically, because digital ecosystem provides flexibility of work, and it actually should be more suitable for domesticated roles of women, but that doesn't seem to be happening. Padma ma'am talked about access to mobile phones, and the data about having their own mobile phone very clearly suggests that only half of the women have mobile phones of their own. And of that, like 7 in 10 are from urban India, and 5 in 10, like half of them in rural India, have access to mobile phones. There is a kind of Oxfam report which very clearly talks about only one third of Indian women as digital internet users. And then obviously India is not doing so well in terms of e-participation index because as we all are recognizing, the infrastructure is the fundamental challenge, and which is what Digital India is kind of focusing on and concerned about. Now, having said that, there are additional challenges because if we say that women are educated, women are getting jobs, everything is fine, then what is happening? So you will realize that when we come to kind of Indian women, as I already said, the report talks about 15% of women are less likely to own a mobile phone, and 33% are less likely to have internet services. So very, very, very clearly, and then there is obviously a kind of a caste excess issue with reference to computers and laptops because compared to 8% of general caste, it's about 1 or 2% of SC/STs who are able to access computers and laptops. So, so though we say infrastructure
Professor
is a
Desai, I'm
challenge,
sorry
but
to
there is an
interrupt.
intersection of
We'll have to
infrastructure
wind
with
up in one
kind
minute.
of other
Yeah, I'm sorry.
categorizations of that.
We'll have
And
to
then there is
wind
a
up in
very
1 minute.
interesting finding about being harassed because Me Too was there, and I'm sure most of us are aware about. The 44% of the because when women are not going for a job because it will be difficult for them to keep up with the times that are expected, she can take up a kind of her own startups and her own enterprises. The study says that 44% of the women founders, female founders, have said that they have been harassed. So that's kind of another reality that the woman is kind of
I'm
facing.
sorry, Professor Desai, we'll have to wind up in a minute because we are running short of time. We are time pressed. So if you can conclude with whatever you want to share.
You can hear me, right?
Yeah, we can. We would like to wind
Yeah.
up, ma'am. Sorry, we are time pressed.
Yeah, yeah,
So if
yeah.
you
I'm
can,
just
yeah, please. Thank you.
So I'm a part of a kind of a state study about cyber violence with women, and we have very little evidences in terms of women's awareness about they are being kind of stalked, they are being blackmailed, they are being kind of morphed, and we all know of what is happening recently with reference to controversies, with reference to deepfake, and kind of stories that have surfaced. The crime are kind of almost one third. And then there is this whole dimension of secondary violence from the family. So there is a kind of a need for what we call DG empowerment in my context, where we talk about power to access, power to express, power to choose, and power to assert, because she needs to have a kind of control over resources, support, and agency. Otherwise, there's no point having women in digital ecosystem. So these are some of the references, and thank you so much for your time.